Despite what anyone says, Bankai is easily one of the most recognizable transformations within all of anime and manga. It represents and embodies hype to the highest degree. It's a culmination of years of hard work and self-introspection on a Shinigami's part, and if you're Ichigo, then it's just 2 days of self-introspection and hard work. But despite that, Bankai is still indisputably one of the greatest means of writing character progression in all of shonen anime and manga, and it serves as just generally a really cool and incredible power-up. Throughout Bleach, we see quite a diverse number of Bankai, each with their own unique expressions of power. With this massive range of Bankai that have been revealed within the story so far, some fans can assume that Bankai are basically random arsepull abilities that just do whatever Kubo needs them to do. But this hot take cannot be any further from the truth, because not only do all of the Bankai within the series have strong relevance to their respective characters, every single Bankai that you've seen in this story has a very specific reason as to why it is manifested in the way that it has. Be sure to stick around until the very end of this video, as I'll be explaining everything that there is to know about the Bankai transformation. Hopefully there'll be several points about Bankai that you will not even have heard of, because I'll be diving into exclusive material from Kubo's official fan club, Club Outside, as well as details about the Bankai form that we learned from the light novels. So without further delay, here is my complete breakdown and explanation of the Bankai transformation. Discover the Undead Collection and be amongst the very first to join us on our journey over at getsuga.com. The concept of Bankai is first explained to us in chapter 127, as it's described as the final evolution of a Zanpakuto's release. It's attained through learning to externalize one Zanpakuto spirit within the physical outside world, as opposed to learning a Shikai where a Shinigami has to go into their inner world and to interact with their Zanpakuto. Credit given to Kubo, this is a rather simple premise which has given rise to the iconic concept of Bankai that we have all come to know and love. When I first encountered Bankai, I didn't think that it would become so incredibly spectacular when I first read Bleach. But surprisingly, here we are now about to explain the multiple different kinds of transformations that Bankai can fall under, because there are specific Bankai transformations that share multiple traits, and I'll be classifying all of the Bankai based upon the traits that they share. So let's begin our explanation of Bankai by diving into the first category of Bankai transformation. So kicking things off, we begin with what I like to call the power condensation type of Bankai. They are Bankai that condense the user's power into a much more compact form. They can still manifest very exclusive abilities in this state, but their main means of power expression revolves around the condensation of their power in order to serve for a specific purpose. This type of Bankai also alters the physical appearance of its user in order to take advantage of their highly condensed power. There are 3 Bankai that fall under this category, and the first is Ichigo Kurosaki's false Tensai Zangetsu, then Head Captain Yamamoto's Zanka no Tachi, and lastly Kinpachi Zaraki's unnamed Bankai. Ichigo's Bankai condenses his immense Reiatsu into his blade and his body. This enhances his physical capabilities to superhuman levels. This power buff is made most evident in his speed, allowing him to completely blitz Byakuya when he had first used his false Bankai. It also changes his basic Shinigami robe for a new, sleek, slender, and really cool design. Now, in terms of Zanka no Tachi, it focuses all of Yamamoto's hellish flames to the edge of his Zanpakuto. It allows its heat to reach the preposterous number of 15 million degrees. All of the other abilities of Zanka no Tachi are tailor-made towards killing the opponent. Yamamoto can also cloak himself in these very hot flames, and he can make himself virtually untouchable. This does alter his appearance as he begins to resemble somewhat of a beast of hell. Kinpachi Zaraki's Bankai, on the other hand, enhances his power, and it breaks down his massive Shikai blade into a smaller, more deadly Zanpakuto. This power was so great that despite Gerard's multiple power enhancements before Kinpachi had activated his Bankai, Gerard was still completely overwhelmed by the incredible destructive power of Kinpachi's Bankai. This Bankai also transforms its user's physical form into somewhat of a demonic, Oni-like appearance from Japanese folklore. Kinpachi's Bankai enables him to reach even higher levels of brute strength strength and power. It seems as though that the power condensation type Bankai all share the same weakness. Ichigo's false Tensa Zangetsu had built up so much Reiatsu that the weight of his own spiritual pressure was crushing him, causing him to slow down a whole lot. Now this is a weakness that he eventually overcomes after some training. In terms of Zanka no Tachi, its one main weakness is the extreme levels of heat that it generates. It is enough to destroy not only Yamamoto and his opponent, but also the entire world that they exist within. So Zanka no Tachi requires the utmost control in order for it to be used, because its unrestricted power could spell the end of the Soul Society. Kinpachi's Bankai also has a major weakness of destroying his body if he uses more power than he can actually handle. This is revealed during his battle against Gerard, where he taps a bit too much into Nozarashi's power and he suffers serious repercussions as a result of it. It's very likely that he can overcome this weakness with enough training, but all of these three Bankai seem to share this same weakness. This leads me to believe that power condensation type Bankai seem to take a high risk, high reward approach in terms of how they function. They enhance their users' powers and abilities to insane degrees, but at the same time they also pose a serious threat to the user if they're unable to properly control the power of the Bankai. And so it's fascinating to see these three Bankai in action. The next class of Bankai transformation on this list would be what I like to call the Mutation Type Bankai transformation. These are Bankai that alter the physical form of its user in accordance with the kind of power that they end up receiving. Typically those who have a Mutation Type Bankai acquire new abilities once the Bankai is activated. Now there are three prominent Bankai that come to mind when I think of this type of transformation. These three are Rukia's Haka no Togame, Renji's So-o Zabimaru, and Toshiro Hitsugaya's Daiguren Hyorinmaru. Rukia and Hitsugaya's Bankai alter their appearance a fair bit. Rukia's Bankai completely changes her Shinigami robes as she really begins to resemble her Zanpakuto spirit, while Hitsugaya manifests dragon-like features which also resembles his Zanpakuto spirit. Now Hitsugaya's dragon-like Bankai form is only present in its immature state, but he takes on a very different appearance in his perfected Bankai form, or in other words his adult transformation. He instead gains small ice constructs that appear to be on multiple parts of his body. Now Renji's true Bankai actually has him manifest a third arm that he can use to attack his enemies and also enhance the range of his melee attacks. Now these Bankai seem to have one similar weakness, and it's that if their Zanpakuto wielders are either unworthy or incapable of activating their true power, then they are pretty much blocked from it completely, and instead their Zanpakuto gives a much weaker version of their Bankai's true power until they gain the rights to activate the full form of their Bankai. This is a type of Bankai that I absolutely love seeing because it gives Kubo the opportunity to flex his creative muscles, as he has come up with some truly remarkable Bankai designs for every transformation that falls under this category. Another major variation of Bankai transformation that we see multiple times within the story is what I'd like to call the Territorial class of Bankai. Now these are Bankai that embody the idea of a double-edged sword due to how they function. These are Bankai that operate within a given spatial zone. They can extend their influence over a normally large terrain of space, and they induce a varying number of effects over the range that they have influence over. This class surprisingly has more Bankai than you'd think, with some appearing very early in the main story. There are even some Bankai that are revealed within the Bleach light novels that fall under this category. Now these are Bankai like Tozen's Enma Korogi, which creates a massive dark sphere that removes 4 of the major senses of whoever is caught within it. Then there is Kinpachi Kuriyashiki's Bankai, which is banned due to its ability to instantly consume whatever exists within its field of influence. Then you have Shinji Hirako's Sakashimi Yokoshimi Happo Fusagari, which can invert the idea of friend and foe for anyone who is caught within its activation zone. Then there's also Bankai like Katen Kyokotsu Karamatsu Shinju, which traps all within its range in a multiple act play which can and will kill anyone who is caught up within it. There is also Bankai like Urahara's Kanonberaki Benihime Aratame, which allows him to restructure anything that his Zanpakuto has touched within a limited domain. There's also Hisagi's Bankai, which is capable of stagnating life and death within a given range as long as his target is enclosed within the chains of his Zanpakuto Kazeshini. I also believe that Rose's Kinshara Bitoden can also be included within this class of Bankai due to its power being tied to auditory illusions that are only effective on those within a given range. These types of Bankai appear to execute exercise authority over reality itself. And while we don't get much of an explanation in the manga on how these Bankai can do this, aside from just this is what it can do, I do believe that there is a number of hints that point at exactly how these abilities function. In chapter 648, when Shunsui activates his Bankai, it completely darkens the sky and sends a chilling wave of spiritual pressure all over Waterworld. This phenomenon alone heavily implies that such Bankai essentially rewrite the reishi that makes up the area that their ability works in. This is also revealed within the Can't Feel Unworld light novels when Hisagi activates his Bankai. This Bankai activation also appears to recreate the reishi of his surroundings, so we can deduce that such Bankai work by using their incredible range in order to rewrite reality down to the very atoms that it is made up of. While this appears to be very incredible on paper, all of these Bankai do appear to have one major weakness. You'd notice that most of the Bankai listed here seem to have some restrictions on their ability to be used. Some of these Bankai have even been banned from being used within the Soul Society, like Kinpachi Kuriyashiki's, and some Shinigami like Shinji or Shunsui prefer not to use their Bankai on the battlefield. This is because these territorial Bankai are a double-edged sword, because despite the really broken ability to trap your enemy in a field where you hold the advantage over, it can also potentially trap one's allies too. This is the main reason as to why most individuals with this type of Bankai prefer to avoid using them in battle unless they are absolutely certain that their allies are not nearby and won't be hurt in the process of their Bankai activation. This weakness can be incredibly devastating if they're in a battle where they have to use their Bankai, thus leaving them with a very difficult choice of having to either potentially kill their allies or allow themselves to be killed as a result of not using their full power. This is a truly powerful class of Bankai that is offset with the major collateral damage that it can cause as a result of its activation. The next class of Bankai is the Summoning Type. These are Bankai that involve the summoning or manifestation of an entity that exists separately from the user that said user can control and exert their power through. This is a class of Bankai that, in my opinion, is quite special in the series. This is because the first Bankai that we ever see in this class is none other than Mayuri Kurosuchi's Bankai Konjigi Ashisogi Jizo, and this is in fact the very first Bankai that we see in all of Bleach. Each of the Bankai within this category have different means by which they function. There's Bankai like Komamura's Kokujo Tengen Myo, which manifests a gigantic armored avatar that mimics all of the actions that are made by Komamura. It isn't shown to be capable of autonomous movement or attack, but with its massive size comes an incredibly massive increase in its destructive power. This Bankai was so powerful that it was able to hurt a holified Kaname Tozen. In my opinion, this Bankai has about 3 major weaknesses. The first is that due to the massive size of his Bankai avatar, it is difficult to have it perform precise motions, and it will suffer a massive disadvantage when fighting in cramped spaces or against faster opponents. All of these are weaknesses that could be circumvented one way or another, but the core weakness of Komamura's Bankai is one that can only be avoided by defeating the opponent before they have a chance to attack you. This is because any injuries that appear on Komamura are reflected on his Bankai and vice versa. This makes it a rather inconvenient Bankai to use because of it being just a massive walking target. It all but guarantees the opponent will land a hit, and if they are strong enough to damage his Bankai avatar, then Komamura will also suffer as a result of it. As far as we know, Komamura's Bankai is the only one that can circumvent the rule of a broken Bankai being incapable of being fixed, because if Komamura is healed, then his Bankai is also healed. So this advantage does kind of offset the massive disadvantage of damage reflection that his Bankai has. So like I mentioned earlier, Konjigi Ashisogi Jizo also falls under this class, as Mayuri manifests a gigantic caterpillar with a human baby's head, and it also has a halo for some strange reason. Now, it doesn't seem to possess any real autonomy of its own, and it only heeds orders from Mayuri. It doesn't possess any of Kokujo Tengen Myo's destructive power, nor its mobility, but what it does have is its ability to release a deadly miasma of poison that paralyzes anyone that is caught within its range. It can also manifest multiple blades that it can use to impale targets. Now, during the 1000-year Blood War arc, this Bankai gets a much needed upgrade, and it gains the ability to create new instances of itself that possess the perfect adaptations to counter the powers of its opponents. The way that Mayuri's Bankai evolves is highly reliant upon the information that Mayuri gathers within battle, and this is probably one of its main weaknesses. weaknesses. This class of Bankai, while powerful, seems to suffer from one major weakness. They appear to be no match against somebody with absolutely overwhelming power. This was showcased when Mayuri's Bankai was blown apart by Uryu's Let's Steal ability during the Soul Society arc, and also for a second time during the 1000-Year Blood War arc by Pernida. Komamura's Bankai also shares this weakness, as his Bankai quickly falls behind when Tozen activates his Resurrection. This is further supported by the fact that he was quickly dispatched by Aizen when the two had clashed in Fate Karakura. So summoning class Bankai can be absolute powerhouses, but at the same time they make themselves massive enemy targets due to their rather impractical size. These are Bankai that are neither top of the line nor would they be at the bottom of the barrel, but at the very least I think that these Bankai are better than the next class that we are about to discuss. The final class of Bankai that I'll be discussing in this video is the Weapon Transformation class. These are Bankai that don't really create as much of a spectacle as the Territorial or Mutation class Bankai, and all that they really do is change their user Zanbakuto into different weapons. Yes, this is as underwhelming as it sounds. Bankai that fall under this category are Soifon's Jakuho Raikoben, Gin Ichimaru's Kamishini no Yari, and lastly Kensei's Tekken Tachikaze. Soifon's Bankai changes her Zanbakuto into a massive missile launcher, and it shoots one missile and that's it. It doesn't replenish itself or give her any extra power outside of the massive nuke that it is able to shoot off. It also leaves her extremely exhausted after using it, and she is only able to fire off a missile a few times within battle. This is a Bankai whose power and weaknesses needs very little discussion, since the devil is all in the details with this one. It's no surprise why Jakuo Raikoben is always in the conversation for the weakest Bankai in the series. The second Bankai in this class is a bit of an upgrade over Jakuo Raikoben, and this would be Tekken Tachikaze, which grants Kensei a new set of gauntlets that infinitely create explosions on whatever surface his fists touch. It's a rather strong ability that can be circumvented by dodging his attacks or having the strength to withstand his explosions. Gin's Bankai is actually one of the best within this category due to its deadly ability to completely destroy his targets from the shards of his Bankai. This is a class of Bankai that in my opinion just might be the worst. They neither grant their user territorial advantages, nor do they increase the power of their users in any meaningful way outside of what new tactic their weapon allows them to use. They are very limited in their use and would most definitely lose to characters who are just physically stronger. The most powerful of this class is definitely Ginichimaru's Bankai due to its lethality and speed, but even that is barely a viable win condition in a 1-to-1 battle. Gin's Bankai is very effective if you want to catch your opponent off guard, but other than that it's hard to utilize effectively. So this class of Bankai is severely limited in its range and versatility, and when compared to the hacks fest that Bleach's endgame becomes, it's easy to see why these Bankai fall behind. Now there's one particular Bankai that I just couldn't find a category for. This is because most of the other Bankai function dominantly within one class despite sharing traits with other classes, but this Bankai manages to operate dominantly in every major role. This Bankai is none other than Byakuya's Zenbonzakura Kageyoshi. Zenbonzakura Kageyoshi is in its most basic state a pseudo-territorial weapon transformation kind of Bankai. Once Byakuya activates Senkei, it becomes a Territorial Type Bankai with power condensation traits, and in its final and most powerful state, called Shuke Hakuteiken, it becomes a full-on Condensation Type Bankai with slight mutation traits. It's a Bankai that embodies absolute versatility, so much so that it was difficult to pin it under one category of Bankai. Another Bankai worth discussing would be Ichibe's, as it's a textbook weapon transformation type, but due to its almost legendary status and how consistently underwhelming the weapons transformation class is, I decided to classify it as its own thing out of spite. It doesn't belong in the same class as the other weapon type Bankai. Bankai is one of the most iconic and memorable transformations within all of shonen anime and manga. Kubo was able to innovate all of these different types of Bankai, and he was able to design some incredible designs with equally amazing abilities. I have made a video on my channel where I've talked about all of the unrevealed Bankai in the series thus far, so definitely go and check out that video, because I'm confident that Kubo is going to be cooking up some amazing new Bankai transformations for the upcoming Hell arc. But as for the topic of this video, let me know all of your thoughts on the various different Bankai transformations that we've seen within Bleach. What is your favorite Bankai transformation class? If there are any Bankai transformations that I haven't classified classified within this video, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. This video was more of a broad overview of some specific Bankai and how they fall under certain categories, so it wasn't comprehensive by any means. So I am really looking forward to seeing you all continue the discussion, and lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.